Maya Rodriguez pressed her fingertips against her tired eyes as she rushed through the airport terminal, her worn sneakers squeaking against the polished floor. The double shift at Romano's diner, followed by 3 hours of bookkeeping for the local hardware store, had left her exhausted, but she couldn't miss this flight. Her grandmother's voice on the phone that morning had been weak, frail in a way that sent ice through Maya's veins. "Gate 23B, boarding now," echoed through the terminal speakers. Maya's heart pounded as she fumbled for her boarding pass, nearly dropping her battered duffel bag. Economy seat 32F. At least she'd made it. She handed her ticket to the flight attendant, who scanned it with a puzzled expression. "Miss Rodriguez? There seems to be an error. You're actually in 2A, first class." "That can't be right," Maya stammered, looking down at her faded jeans and oversized cardigan. "I specifically booked economy." The attendant's smile remained professional. "Computer glitch, perhaps, but you're confirmed in 2A. Lucky night for you." Maya walked down the aisle in a daze, her cheeks burning as other first-class passengers glanced at her casual attire. She located 2A and slid into the plush leather seat, trying to make herself invisible. The seat beside her was empty, giving her a moment to catch her breath and process the surreal situation. She was just settling in when a man approached, tall, broad-shouldered with dark hair, and the kind of sharp jawline that belonged on magazine covers. He wore an expensive charcoal suit that probably cost more than Maya made in 3 months. When he sat down in 2B, she caught a whiff of cedar and bergamot cologne. Maya tried not to stare, but something about him seemed familiar. When he pulled out his phone to make a call, speaking in clipped, authoritative tones about quarterly projections and board meetings, recognition hit her like a lightning bolt. Alexander Sterling, the tech billionaire whose face graced business, magazines, and news articles. The man whose company had revolutionized social media platforms, making him one of the youngest billionaires in the world. And he was sitting right next to her. Maya's hands trembled slightly as she fumbled with her seatbelt. She'd read about him, brilliant but ruthless, innovative but cold. The media painted him as someone who viewed people as chess pieces, calculating, and distant. Alex ended his call and glanced at her, his gray eyes sharp and assessing. For a moment their gazes met, and Maya felt her breath catch. Up close, those eyes held something she hadn't expected, a deep weariness that seemed to mirror her own exhaustion. "Rough day?" he asked, his voice deeper than she'd expected, with just a hint of curiosity. Maya blinked, surprised he'd spoken to her at all. "You could say that. You?" The corner of his mouth lifted in what might have been the ghost of a smile. "Every day." As the plane prepared for takeoff, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that this chance encounter might be more significant than either of them realized. The plane had been in the air for barely an hour when it began to shake violently. Maya's knuckles turned white as she gripped the armrest, her stomach lurching with each sudden drop. Around them, passengers gasped and murmured anxiously as the overhead bins rattled ominously. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some unexpected turbulence." The captain's voice crackled through the intercom, barely audible over the plane's groaning. "Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened." Another violent jolt sent Maya's water bottle flying. Without thinking, she reached out and placed her hand over Alex's, which had tensed on the armrest between them. "It's going to be okay," she said softly, her natural instinct to comfort others overriding her nervousness about touching a billionaire. Alex stared down at their joined hands, something flickering across his features. When was the last time someone had tried to comfort him instead of seeking something from him? "You're not afraid?" he asked, his voice quieter now. "Terrified," Maya admitted with a shaky laugh, but she didn't move her hand away. "But my grandmother always said fear shared is fear halved." As the turbulence continued, they found themselves talking, really talking. Alex told her about board meetings that felt like battles, about making decisions that affected thousands of employees he'd never met. Maya shared stories from the diner about Mrs. Chen, who came in every Tuesday for coffee, and to show photos of her grandchildren, about balancing textbooks on her lap while taking orders during her college years. Why a bakery? Alex asked during a particularly smooth stretch, genuinely curious. You could do anything. Maya's eyes lit up. My grandmother taught me to bake when I was little. There's something magical about creating something from nothing, watching people's faces when they taste something that makes them happy. Food brings people together. She paused, studying his face. When's the last time you felt truly happy? Not successful or accomplished, just happy. The question caught Alex off guard. He couldn't remember. Success had become his drug, achievement his only measure of worth. But sitting here with Maya, watching her animated expressions as she talked about her dreams, he felt something he'd almost forgotten existed. Contentment. I don't know, he answered honestly. Maya squeezed his hand gently. That makes me sad. Her sincerity was disarming. No judgment, no pity, just genuine concern for someone she barely knew. Alex found himself telling her things he'd never shared with anyone. The loneliness of being surrounded by people who only saw his bank account, the weight of constantly being on, the fear that he'd become the cold, calculating person the media portrayed. You're not that person, Maya said firmly when he finished. Cold people don't worry about their employees or fund anonymous charities. Yes, I read about that. You just need someone to see the real you. As the plane finally steadied, Alex realized something profound had shifted. For the first time in years, someone had looked at him and seen not Alexander Sterling the billionaire, but simply Alex, a man who was tired, lonely, and desperately craving authentic human connection. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For treating me like I'm normal? Maya smiled and Alex felt his heart skip. Everyone deserves that. With the turbulence behind them, Maya and Alex settled into a conversation that flowed as naturally as breathing. The pretenses had melted away, leaving two souls connecting across an impossible divide of circumstance. Tell me about your grandmother, Alex said, adjusting his position to face her more fully. The movement brought him closer, close enough that Maya caught the warmth radiating from his body. Maya's expression softened. Elena Rodriguez. She raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 12. She worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat but never complained. She taught me that kindness costs nothing but is worth everything. Her voice wavered slightly. The doctors say it's her heart. She keeps telling me she's fine, but Alex's hand found hers again, this time intentionally. You're going to see her now? Yes, I should have gone sooner, but I couldn't afford to miss work. Maya looked down at their intertwined fingers, surprised by how right it felt. What about your family? Alex's jaw tightened slightly. My parents died when I was 22. Car accident like yours. No siblings. I threw myself into building the company, told myself I was honoring their memory by succeeding. He paused, his thumb unconsciously stroking across her knuckles. I think I was just avoiding feeling anything. The vulnerability in his admission made Maya's chest tighten. I'm sorry. That must have been incredibly lonely. It was. Still is, most of the time. Alex met her gaze, something intense flickering in his gray eyes. Until tonight. The air between them seemed to shimmer with possibility. Maya felt her pulse quicken at the way he was looking at her. Like she was something precious he'd stumbled upon in the darkness. I have a confession, Maya whispered. I Googled you once, after I saw you on a magazine cover at the grocery store. Alex's eyebrow arched. And what did you think? Honestly? I thought you looked sad, even in the photos where you were smiling. She tilted her head, studying his face. I was right, wasn't I? The question hung between them like a bridge neither was sure they should cross. Alex had never met anyone who could read him so clearly, who saw through the carefully constructed facade to the man beneath. How do you do that? He asked softly. Do what? See me. Really see me. Maya's cheeks flushed pink, but she didn't look away. Maybe because I know what it's like to feel invisible. When you're working 2 jobs just to survive, people tend to look through you. Alex's free hand moved to touch her face, his fingers tracing the curve of her cheek with reverent gentleness. You could never be invisible, not to me. The moment stretched between them, charged with an electricity that had nothing to do with the plane's engines. Maya's lips parted slightly, and Alex found himself leaning closer, drawn by a magnetism he'd never experienced before. Maya, he whispered, her name a prayer on his lips. Alex, she breathed back, and the sound of his name without titles or formality sent warmth flooding through his chest. They were inches apart now, close enough that Maya could count the flecks of silver in his eyes, could feel his breath against her lips. The world outside their bubble ceased to exist. No first-class cabin, no other passengers, no impossible differences in their circumstances. Just Alex and Maya, 2 souls recognizing something profound in each other. I don't understand what's happening, Maya admitted, her voice barely audible. Neither do I, Alex replied, his forehead touching hers. But I don't want it to stop. The plane hummed around them as they sat suspended in that perfect moment, both knowing that whatever was beginning between them would change everything. The plane's descent into San Francisco jolted them back to reality. Maya reluctantly pulled away from Alex, suddenly aware of how intimate their position had become. The spell wasn't broken, but the outside world was rushing back in. I don't want this to end, Alex said quietly as passengers began stirring around them, preparing for landing. Maya's heart ached with the same sentiment, but doubt crept in. Alex, we're from completely different worlds. You're a billionaire, and I can barely make rent. Do you think that matters to me? His voice carried an urgency that made her look up. Maya, in 3 hours, you've made me feel more alive than I have in years. Don't let fear steal this from us. As they waited to disembark, Alex pulled out his phone and made a quick call. Maya heard fragments. The community center project in Oakland. Yes, the bakery component. I want it operational within the month. What are you doing? She asked. Alex's eyes gleamed with excitement. Wait and see. 2 weeks later, Maya stood in her grandmother's kitchen, flour dusting her hands as she helped prepare empanadas. Elena had been responding well to treatment, though she remained weak. The visit had been bittersweet, precious time together shadowed by uncertainty. Her phone buzzed with a text from Alex. Can you meet me at 1247 Oak Street in Oakland? I have something to show you. They'd texted every day since the flight, conversations that stretched late into the night. Each exchange had deepened their connection, but they hadn't seen each other in person. Maya's breath caught when she arrived at the address. It was a beautiful corner building with large windows and a coming soon sign. Alex stood outside, hands in his pockets, looking nervous in a way that was endearingly human. What is this? She asked, stepping closer. Your bakery, Alex said simply. Well, it could be. I've been developing a community center here, and it needs someone to run the cafe component. Someone who believes in bringing people together through food. Maya stared at the space, then at Alex. You did this for me? I did this for us, he corrected, stepping closer. I don't want to give you money or change your life with my wealth. I want to give you an opportunity to chase your dreams while I figure out how to be part of them. Tears pricked Maya's eyes. Alex, is that a yes? Hope and vulnerability warred in his expression. Instead of answering, Maya rose on her tiptoes and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, then deeper as Alex's arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. Yes, she whispered against his lips. Their first official date was that evening, not at an expensive restaurant but at a small park overlooking the bay. Alex had packed a simple picnic, and they sat on a blanket watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. I called in some favors to get the permits fast-tracked, Alex admitted, feeding her a strawberry. The space should be ready in 6 weeks. Maya laughed, the sound like music to his ears. You know, most people bring flowers on a first date. You brought me a business. Are you complaining? He asked, nuzzling her neck in a way that made her shiver. Never, she breathed, turning in his arms. This kiss was different from their first, hungrier, more desperate. Alex's hands tangled in her hair as Maya's arms wound around his neck. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard. Maya, Alex whispered, his voice rough with desire. I'm falling for you. Hard. Good, she replied, her smile radiant in the fading light. Because I already fell. As the stars began to appear above them, Alex held Maya close, marveling at how completely she'd turned his world upside down. For the first time in his life, success meant something beyond money or power. It meant being worthy of the extraordinary woman in his arms. 3 months later, the scent of fresh bread and cinnamon filled Maya's neighborhood bakery as she pulled the last batch of morning pastries from the oven. Sunlight streamed through the large windows, illuminating the cozy space that had become the heart of the community. Local artists displayed their work on the walls, and mismatched vintage tables created intimate conversation nooks. "Maya, dear, the usual?" called Mrs. Patterson, a regular who came in every morning with her book club friends. "Coming right up," Maya replied, her face glowing with contentment. This place had exceeded every dream she'd ever dared to have. The bell above the door chimed, and Maya's heart skipped as Alex walked in. Even after all this time, the sight of him still took her breath away. He'd changed, too, the hard edges softened, smile lines appearing around his eyes. He'd learned to find joy in simple pleasures. Sunday morning farmers markets, cooking dinner together, quiet evenings reading while Maya tested new recipes. "Busy morning?" he asked, leaning across the counter to steal a kiss. "The best kind," Maya replied, then noticed the nervous energy radiating from him. "Alex, what's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Everything's perfect, actually." He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture she'd learned meant he was working up courage for something. "Maya, close the bakery early today. I can't just... Please. Trust me." An hour later, Maya found herself back in the bakery, but something was different. Soft music played from hidden speakers, and fairy lights twinkled throughout the space. Rose petals created a path from the entrance to the center of the room, where Alex stood waiting. "What is this?" Maya whispered, her heart pounding. Alex dropped to one knee, pulling out a simple, elegant ring. "Maya Rodriguez, 3 months ago, you changed my entire world by treating me like a human being instead of a bank account. You taught me that love isn't something you buy or earn, it's something you give freely. You've made me want to be worthy of your kindness, your laughter, your incredible heart." Tears streamed down Maya's face as he continued. "This bakery isn't just a business. It's proof that your dreams can change the world. Just like you changed mine." His voice broke slightly. "Will you marry me?" "Yes," Maya sobbed, falling to her knees beside him. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." Alex slipped the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, then pulled her into a kiss that tasted like forever. 1 year later, Maya adjusted her simple white dress, her grandmother's pearl necklace her only adornment. They'd chosen to marry in the bakery, surrounded by the community they'd built together. Alex's corporate friends mingled with Maya's diner colleagues, the barriers between worlds dissolved by love and good food. "Ready, mija?" Elena asked, taking Maya's arm. Her grandmother had made a full recovery, insisting she was too stubborn to miss her granddaughter's wedding. Maya nodded, her eyes finding Alex at the makeshift altar. He stood with tears in his eyes, looking at her like she was everything he'd ever wanted. As they exchanged vows they'd written themselves, promising to build a life measured not in wealth, but in kindness, laughter, and shared dreams, Maya marveled at the journey that had brought them here. "I love you, Mrs. Sterling," Alex whispered after their first kiss as husband and wife. "I love you too," Maya replied, her hand resting on the small bump beneath her dress, their newest secret, a surprise she'd discovered just that morning. Later, as they swayed together to their first dance, Alex's hand protective over their unborn child. Maya looked around at the faces of everyone they loved gathered in their little bakery. A random seat assignment had led to this, a love story that proved the most extraordinary journeys often begin with the simplest moments. Sometimes, the best destinations are the ones you never knew you were searching for, found in the unexpected kindness of a stranger who becomes your whole world.